Not only do we have SVG coming on the podcast, we have the man behind the Chicago Street Race himself, Ben Kennedy. We've been trying to get him on for months. Finally, we have got him located in his hotel room in Chicago. How is it now that your boots on the ground out there?
It's great. It's good to finally be in Chicago. It's been a long time coming. This is a project we've been working on for many years now, but great to finally be here in Chicago. I can tell you the energy is strong. I went around the course today and had a chance to look at it for the first time in this condition with everything coming together, and I think it's going to be a really special weekend out here. So looking forward to it.
How much of your available time do you think you've spent in the last year on this weekend in particular?
That's a good question. I would say in the last year, maybe 40% of my time, 40 to 50%. Julie Geezy and the entire team here in Chicago. So we have a team based in Chicago. We have an office here that's just on the north side of the park, led by Julie, who used to be the track president at Phoenix. She transitioned over to Chicago to be the track president of Chicago. So we have her as well as a dedicated team here. And then central and regional kind of business units are all supporting this area. So I would say I've spent a decent amount of time on it, but really I have to give a ton of credit to Julie and the entire team here in Chicago. We also partnered up with a company called Four Leaf out of Austin, Texas, who has a ton of experience in the city with big events like this, and they've been tremendous too. So I've spent a little bit of time here, but I would say a lot of it has really been led by the boots on the ground here.
So first ever street race in essentially the modern era of NASCAR. Is there any racing series, whether it be Indy or F1, you've kind of looked at or asked just some opinions on how to best execute the weekend?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I would say the first thing that we really wanted to try to find out, and this was earlier on in the process, is figuring out, hey, can we actually make this course work? Is it feasible or not? So as a part of that, partnered up with iRacing, who I'm sure you've jumped on many times before, wheel and pedals, they laser scan the tracks, you can go drive it in a virtual race car. So we did that, tested out the course, made a couple of different variations of it, got it to a good spot. And then, I'd say over the past probably two and a half years or so, obviously we've had our, design development team and competition folks that have been working on this, but have reached out to, the folks in Nashville and Toronto and St. Pete and the other people that have worked on street courses before, because this is something that's brand new to us. So to your point, we've never done a street course in our sport's 75-year history. We're all going through a lot of kind of learning curves as we put all this together. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to work really well. There's going to be a lot of things that we're going to learn and want to improve upon. But thankfully we've had a lot of talented folks that have a lot of experience with road courses and street courses that have all helped kind of put the site plan together and what it's really going to look like this weekend.
What has been a harder undertaking, pulling this off or putting a racetrack inside the LA Coliseum?
I would actually say, I'd have to ask Julie that question. But I would say probably this. If you go back to the Coliseum, and even if you talk to some of our internal folks that put those plans together, so the biggest challenge we really had there was the window of time. We had 6 weeks to essentially bring in a couple hundred truckloads of dirt, pave a quarter-mile asphalt racetrack, construct the walls, construct the fencing, put the safer barriers in, and then tear it down and be out of there within 2 weeks. And it seemed really daunting, but the great part about it is you had a lot of the built-in infrastructure already. So you had the grandstands, you had the suites, you had the hospitality areas, you had Wi-Fi and connectivity, you had all the fiber and cabling that you need to broadcast a race. For an event like this, we're starting with a blank slate. So everything that you're going to see this weekend outside of the park and the fixtures that exist there permanently are all temporary. So obviously the walls are temporary, the fence is temporary, the grandstands are temporary. Our paddock club structure that we've never done before, that's 25 feet up in the air, is all entirely temporary. So I would say that's been the biggest learning curve for us, is obviously working with our internal folks, but then Four Leaf to really create the vision for what this event's going to look like. What are the different tiers? What does the fan experience look like? How do we make it different and special for the people that are coming to it? What's the entertainment look like when we have the Chainsmokers and Miranda Lambert on the stage? And really try to make something special around it. So I would say that's been, I don't want to speak for them. I don't think it's been a huge challenge. It's just been time consuming trying to put all of those plans together, what load-in's going to look like, what load-out's going to look like, and then the whole vision.
At what point do you feel like with the work you're doing with the LA Clash, the Chicago Street Race, and all the future events you're going to be behind, figuring out how to continue to push the sport forward, at what point do you think that you'll legitimately feel like you're grabbing the baton from your family and pushing the sport into the next chapter?
You know, I'd say it's a team effort for sure. A lot of folks have been involved on these two projects in particular. And, you know, I think the hope as we think about just scheduling in general, and you think about this year, I think it's a really good example of it. Our 75th anniversary, had the opportunity to go to an iconic historic racetrack that we haven't been to in over 2 decades in North Wilkesboro, celebrate our roots and celebrate our history, but then, you know, a month and a half later, do something entirely new and entirely different and create a street race in downtown Chicago. So I think it's an opportunity for us to celebrate our history and who we are as a sport, but then also where there are opportunities for us to think differently and think bold and introduce our fans to NASCAR in a different way, but then also introduce people that haven't had the opportunity to come out and sample our sport before, give them the opportunity to. So, you know, it's been a really neat project and projects to be on over the past few years. You know, I'd say in the grand scheme of things, scheduling is just one part of our business. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to work on the competition side a little bit. I've had the opportunity to work with Phelps and O'Donnell on strategy and innovation and scheduling and international. So it's really a very complex business. I know I still have a ton to learn and a lot of you know, things that are going on, but you know, thankfully we've got a great group to lean on and learn from along the way.
It's almost like I'm hearing you say if the fans might not want to come out and see the show, we're going to bring the show right to the fans, right downtown Chicago, right downtown LA. Is there anything on your wish list of either taking potentially a temporary short track or another street course to different markets that we don't go to currently?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, what we've said from the start as you think about a concept like a stadium event or a street course event, and then you look at our schedule in totality, right? Road courses and street courses and stadium events aren't necessarily what we've run through our past 75 years. Our core of our schedule really lives on oval tracks. You know, short tracks, intermediate tracks, super speedways. You know, that's really the DNA of the schedule. So, you know, we've added more road courses over the years, and we're going to dabble and dip our toe into a street race here or there. You know, maybe we have a stadium race, you know, continue to be in LA or in other markets. But for us, this is really, and we've said this internally a bunch, this is proof of concept for us. So we've never done any of these concepts before, and to your point exactly, it's an opportunity for us to bring NASCAR racing to a lot of people in a new and different way. And, you know, I think Chicago and Los Angeles are great examples of that. And if there are other opportunities as we look at both domestic and abroad, you know, it then opens the door to a lot of other potential markets you could look at. So think about the number of Olympic stadiums you have around the world that you could potentially have a stadium-like event at, or just street courses in general. It opens the door to so many places. So by no means am I saying that we're going to have, you know, 20 street courses on this schedule 15 years from now. But I think dipping our toe into a new type of venue like this certainly opens the doors to new markets where we may not have otherwise had permanent facilities.
I presented a hot take earlier in the show that you can help us resolve the thinking behind it. I proposed that I wish that there was certain races throughout the course of the year that were cup only, right? We had previously the Brickyard 400 was if you were on the Cup Garage, you were at the big track. If you were a truck or Xfinity guy, you were at IRP. And I almost think my take is you dilute from the big show by bringing the other ones there. Is there conversations internally as to why you like supporting series and not have more cup standalone events?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say it depends on a number of factors. I think part of it is a lot of our fans love to come for the entire weekend. So, obviously a lot of them love to camp out. And I think as we talk to a lot of our track promoters, that's a big element of the value of the weekend, right? People want to come on Thursday and Friday. They want to see races on Friday night and, maybe an Xfinity race on Saturday leading into the Cup race. So I think creating that weekend atmosphere has always been important to us. Across the industry, you do get a lot of efficiencies, not only on the competition side, but broadcasts and kind of other areas of the industry just gain efficiencies having everyone in that same market. That said, it's I'd be lying to say it's a concept that we don't constantly talk about. To your point, I could probably think of, a handful of different markets where you have, a really big track where you could have a cup event at, but then you have other local short tracks where you can host those races. So really, a big part of that is just, thinking through, what's kind of the level, of parameters around that track to make sure that we can bring in an Xfinity Series race or a Truck Series race, that it's safe for our competitors, it's safe for the fans, it has asphalt, it's in really good condition, broadcast can come in, obviously cover it. So there's a lot of things that we definitely have to consider as we think about, both the venues that we're running at today and then the potential new venues. But something that we definitely talk about a lot on the scheduling group.
So you guys have all the metrics on people who are consuming tickets, buying tickets. What's the percentage of fans coming to Chicago who are first-time fans, and what should they expect going this weekend?
Yeah, it's I don't have the exact number in front of me. I'm gonna say it will probably look similar to what we had in LA a year and a half ago for the first Clash at the Coliseum. So that was around 70%. I'm gonna guess 2/3 to 3/4 or more of the people that are coming are gonna be first-time customers. So, I think the great part about it is we have a lot of fans that have gone to other venues that are still coming to this race. We'll have a lot of people, both from the Chicago area and around the world. So 50 different states. So we finally got all 50 states. And 13 different countries are going to come this weekend. So far, we still have 4 more days to sell. So we're going to have a lot of folks coming, certainly that have followed NASCAR for years or decades. We'll have a lot of new folks come this weekend and sample it for the first time too.
So that's super cool and super optimistic to hear. I was going to ask you. I'm going to ask you the 3 questions that I ask everybody. Do you have something else?
No, I don't have anything. I'm good.
Okay, you're good.
I mean, it is. I guess I would have one question because we're both. We cross paths. First question is, do you remember racing against Corey, and what do you remember about racing against him?
Did I ever run into you?
The only thing that I remember racing against Corey, and this is so bad, is at Gresham Motorsports Park, and Corey can keep me honest because I know he remembers it, is we were lining up for practice. So we went down through the infield. Yeah, went through the infield, and I was trying to index my wheel, so I was trying to reset it on the steering column, and I went forward and I went backwards, and I thought that I checked my mirror, but I don't know if it was a blind spot or honestly maybe I didn't check it, and I backed over Corey's left front fender. So it took me a long time to not live that one down, but I felt pretty bad after that. And from there on out, I told my spotter to just constantly talk to me, even if it's like on pit road in the middle of practice. Tell me what's going on.
I asked that question because I look at the notes here, and you were just named, Sports Business Journal's top 40 under 40. You've kind of come into more of a leadership role and really an unprecedented time for our sport with the next-gen car and really pushing on events further and further. Some of the things that we're doing, especially this weekend, if we talked about it 5-10 years ago, everybody in the garage would be up in arms. How much has your time as a competitor there when you were younger helped you transition into a leadership role?
I would say quite a bit. Don't want to say that you take it, for granted or anything as you're a driver, but I think as I was thinking about it as a driver, every day that I went to a racetrack or I came home from a racetrack, I was constantly focused on being the best athlete that I possibly could. I definitely didn't have the talent to start, and I probably didn't when I retired as a driver. But I learned a lot throughout the way. And, in the back of my head, I was always curious, is there going to be a period of time when I transition over? And are there going to be anything that I'm learning today as a driver that I could apply? And in my head, I would always say, no, there's not a ton. But since I've come over to the business side, there's so much that I've been able to apply from being behind the wheel in a driver's seat, or even being on the team owner side. Granted, in a much smaller capacity with a late model team in Daytona Beach, Florida. But I think there's a lot of learnings that I've had along the way, and if anything, it gives me a bit of a different lens and different perspective to look from. That when we have conversations with teams about X, there might be something, again, to a much smaller scale that I've also experienced on the team side too. So I think that's been a big part of it. And then, as you guys know, relationships are huge in this sport. Building those relationships, being a driver and team owner has been really helpful too. So I think it's so neat to see a lot of the people that I work with in the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series that are now sitting on the pit box for people that are going to Victory Lane on Sunday. So it's really neat to see a lot of other people having success and people that I've had the privilege to work with too.
I'll ask you these 3 questions. Generally, they're through a driver's perspective, but I'm going to go and ask you to answer them through your current role's perspective, right? Question number 1 is, if you had to pick one type of car and one type of racetrack, and where do you put it?
So we're talking about NASCAR race cars? Or
any race car you want to pick, buddy.
One type of car and one type of racetrack, and you put it anywhere.
Yeah.
I would, I guess I would have to take a cup car because I've never driven a cup car. That's always been on my list. I would take a next-gen car. I would probably do Daytona just because, well, you can't really move Daytona. So maybe Talladega. And, I don't know, put it on an island somewhere.
Yes.
Somewhere really tropical and just an island speedway. And you gotta take a boat to get there or something.
Yes.
I don't know.
Now we're talking.
I think that'd be cool. Yeah.
That's the Clash.
Yeah, nice backdrop.
In 2030, Island Speedway.
Yeah. Island Speedway, somewhere in the Caribbean or something.
Now we're talking. We'll talk off the record about details for that first too. By the way,
don't hold me to that by any means.
We'll see about that. I think you already answered number 2, which was what's the most embarrassed you've been at the racetrack. I'll take the answer that you gave us earlier about you backing over my hood at Gresham as your answer.
Yes.
Question number 3. And this is your driving memories and just your overall memories in the sport since you were born into it and you've grown up in it. If you had to lose every single one of your racing memories and keep one, what do you pick?
I would pick I was really young, and I remember growing up, and obviously grew up around the sport in Daytona. I think I went to every Daytona 500 that since I was born. Maybe not my first one because I was 2 months old, but I've been to a lot. I would say, and I got to grow up, watching Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon, and the rivalry that ensued in between them. And it was amazing to watch, certainly as a kid, and then grow up and have respect for it. So, I think being able to experience Dale Earnhardt's Daytona 500 win was something really special. I mean, the amount of decades that he tried to win that event. And then to win it, and then to see the entire industry, I mean, all the teams line up and down pit road, was something incredible. And then, the iconic donut in the grass is something that you'll remember for a lifetime. So, I'd say if I could remember anything, it would probably be that day.
That's a great answer. That give me some goosebumps to fire me up for this weekend. Well, Ben, I know you got a lot of work to do there in Chicago, but if you can, man, just take a minute and take it all in for the hard work you and your team have put together to put this event on. It's going to be huge for our sport, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you for jumping on Stacking Pennies with us this time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to seeing you guys out here. Should be a fun weekend.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.